All right, welcome to the first Human Optimization Wednesday. I'm Adam Powles, this is Matt Powles. We are the owners of Jag Fit Chicago. We both have a few certifications in nutrition. We've been in this game for a while. We know a good bit about a lot of the fad diets, about food. So basically our objective here is to kind of demystify, right, what is the best diet. We're going to talk about what a diet is. We're going to talk about why you might diet. And then we're going to go into some of the fad diets, kind of tell you what they could be used for, poke a few holes in them. And then we got a nice list of questions that you guys sent in. So we're going to address all those questions.
All right. Did you want to thank our sponsors?
Yeah, I want to thank our sponsors, Prepped and Plated Foods.
Prepped and Plated for all your at-home food needs during quarantine.
Yeah, we would want to thank Nike, but there was a problem with our contract. They're off by a couple commas, so we can't. And of course, McDonald's.
Yeah.
Delicious.
All right, let's get into it.
All right, so when we talk about the best diet, we want to first kind of talk about what is a diet, right? Diet is obviously everything you eat. What you eat goes into form of calories, right? We are consuming calories. Matt, why don't you go ahead and tell people what a calorie is?
That's right. If we look at a diet, like Adam said, we're looking at what we consume throughout the day. So a diet for some people is going to be limited calories, if the goal is weight loss, for instance, or it's going to be additional, or what we call a surplus of calories, if my goal is to put on muscle or to get bigger, if I want to be big and jacked like Brad and Chad, or like Mueller. But what a calorie is literally a measurement of energy. It is an amount of energy burned. So at a scientific level, it is the energy required to raise 1 gram of water by 1 degree Celsius. But what it means to you is it's the energy you put into your body, and it's the energy you expend during all sorts of different things.
Great, so now we kind of know what a calorie is. Calories come in 3 different forms of macronutrients, right? So we have carbs, we have fat, and we have protein. All kind of have a wrap within our world.
Protein.
People know mostly what form those foods come in, right? We have carbs, starches like potato, rice. We also have fibrous carbs like all of our vegetables. We all know kind of what fats can look like. We get them from animal protein, we get them from nuts, seeds, and then we know what
shitty fats.
We have shitty fats,
oils, deep fried stuff.
Yeah, and then protein, obviously. Most people consume the majority in the form of animal protein, but if you're living that vegan, vegetarian lifestyle, I'm sorry, I cannot get on board with that. But power to you.
Different strokes for different folks.
I hope you're getting your protein. So we kind of want to talk about what macros do in our body. What could they be used for? So I guess we'll start with carbs, since that is kind of the demonized macronutrient right now. Now, what do carbs do for us?
Right, so we're going to get into the different diets that you may have heard of, paleo, keto, all those here in a little bit. But if we're looking at carbs, a lot of diets will limit the amount of carbohydrates that you're taking in, right? The thought is that carbs are stored in the form of fat or lipids inside the body, right? Giving you that puffy or bloated appearance. That can be true in some cases. We'll get into that a little bit. But more importantly, carbs are the primary energy source for everything you do, especially exercise. If you're exercising, the chances are your body is trying to use carbohydrates to do that. Now, some people have heard that slower, longer duration exercise, like running, uses fats. That is true, but only to a degree, right? Even if you're looking at a 90-minute run, or even in a lot of cases, a marathon, your body's preferred source of energy is still going to be those carbohydrates. It is not fat. So we need to make sure that we're getting those carbohydrates in.
Yeah, and it does a lot more than that. I mean, when we talk about it's our preferred source of energy, it is in exercise, but it is also a preferred source of energy for all of our daily tasks, right? Your body would rather use carbs to keep your heart beating, to keep your stomach working, to fire your brain in all sorts. That's why, and we'll get into this later, right? But like when people start keto, they have what's called the keto flu in the beginning. And it's because your body is literally saying, what the hell is happening? Like my preferred, like there's no gasoline in my body right now, and I'm freaking out, and it's having to adapt to a non-optimal setting, basically.
Yeah.
Going into let's go to fats. Fats got a really bad rap in like the 80s, 90s. That's when you started seeing all like the fat-free stuff come out on shelves.
They taste damn good though. Who doesn't like nut butter?
Oh my gosh, what is it, the Get RX nut butter?
If anyone hasn't had the blue packet of RX nut butter,
What are you
you
doing?
need to get your ass out right now and get some of that, because that shit is life-changing.
Amazing, amazing. But what do fats, what do fats do for us?
So fats do a lot of different things, right? Like I said earlier, they can be used, they are your body's second choice for energy. So we can use fats for energy in the absence of carbs, or if we're doing something extremely long, like if we were hiking for 8 hours, our body would end up preferring to use fats after about 2 to 3 hours. But beyond that, what we need to focus on fats for is their ability to insulate the body, right, within the brain, but also the endocrine response that fats create. A lot of our hormones, right, if we look at testosterone, if we look at estrogen, if we look at all of the hormones that suppress our hunger, these often are derived from fats within the body. So fats, just like all three of the macronutrients, carbs, fats, proteins we're talking about, are absolutely essential to some degree.
And then we'll come to the last one, protein, which
I
is...
want to touch on one more thing on fats. If we look back at fats in the 90s and 2000s, we saw saturated fat, right? There are three different types of fats. Saturated fat, polyunsaturated fat, and monounsaturated fat. A lot of times that saturated fat, which you would find in bacon or butter, for instance, has been totally demonized as something that just wrecks your body, but it is necessary. We use that for things that we can't use the poly and mono unsaturated fats for. So kind of the general consensus right now is just like everything in moderation, right? So we want to have approximately 1/3 of our fat calories coming from monosaturated, 1/3 from polysaturated, and 1/3 from saturated fats. Now, don't get caught up on that 1/3 per thing. The idea is just mix up your sources of fats instead of just eating nuts all day and getting that single source of fat.
Yeah, and I guess now that we've talked about all, or most of the three, the two that have been demonized, right? There are only 3 macronutrients that you get from food. It's fat, it's carbs, and it's protein. For someone to tell you that one of the 3 essential macronutrients is not good for your body is horseshit.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. Like, you need all 3 because, like, that's why they're there. Like the whole fat makes you fat. It's like, yeah, if you ate fat in the form of McDonald's cheeseburgers or fried Oreos all the time.
That's not a thing.
What? Fried
Oreos?
A fried Oreo?
No.
Well, you're missing out. I mean, you have a fried Oreo.
Has anyone else had a fried Oreo? I mean, I'm gonna try and find one now that you brought it up, but
they're life changing.
Fried
And
Oreo.
so if you're eating all those, yeah, probably not the best idea. But fat doesn't make you fat. It's calories that make you fat. It's an excess of calories.
For real though, if you're ever listening to someone online or someone in person and they tell you that you need to eliminate an entire macronutrient, be it fats, proteins, or carbs from your diet, anything they say after that is useless. They've already discredited themselves as being entirely useless unless you're doing it for some type of health reason where it's a requirement.
So let's talk about the last one, kind of the king of the macronutrients, which is protein. Protein has never really gotten a bad rap because protein's awesome. Protein is another essential for the body. There is some discrepancies and it has kind of gotten out of whack, kind of the amount of protein that you need. People thinking that they need to slam 3 protein shakes a day. That's not true. But you do want a nice high protein diet. Why do they want a high protein diet?
So protein is amino acids, right? That is the base of protein. Amino acids combine together to create proteins. Amino acids are the building blocks of every cell in your body. Everything in your body is built by proteins. Your brain cells are built by proteins, your muscle cells are built by proteins, even your bone cells end up being built by proteins. So without an adequate amount of protein, your body can start to catabolize on itself, which is where it starts to break down the structures within the body. Or if our goal is to improve our athleticism, we're not going to be able to create muscle or get better, get stronger, increase our bone mineral density without proteins in the body. They are absolutely essential, and they're essential in large quantities, whether we're looking to build muscle Or even more importantly, sometimes people don't understand, if our goal is to lose weight, if we don't want that weight to be our muscle, if we want it to be our fat, which I think is generally the case, I don't know who's trying to lose muscle, then we even want to increase the amount of protein we're taking so that we can focus on retaining the muscle while we go into a caloric deficit, which will lose us weight.
That is actually kind of a perfect segue
Ching,
because I want to talk about our metabolism, right? It's another big buzzword that gets thrown around. Stroke your metabolic fire. Ooh, I want to create a metabolism.
We're back.
That is just purely fat burning. Kind of weird things to say when you understand what a metabolism is. And what your metabolism is just any function in your body. To say someone has a slow metabolism or fast metabolism kind of gets lost because...
No, that's why I can't lose weight, man. I just have a slow metabolism, so it's just useless for me to try and lose weight, right?
It's like everyone's metabolism speeds up and slows down throughout the day, right? When I'm sleeping, my body is working at its lowest point to keep me alive because I'm not moving, I'm asleep, I'm not having to think very much. It's just functioning in my organs. So my metabolism's low. I need very little calories. Whereas my metabolism, when I'm in the middle of a long workout, is going to be very high. It's having to use all of the calorie sources that I have in my body to not only keep my body alive, keep my heart beating at a much higher rate, keep all my organs functioning, but I'm working as well. So my metabolism there is going to be higher than it is when I'm sleeping. So to say that my metabolism is chronically low is silly. And to say that you can constantly have your metabolism high is also silly. And that can kind of be seen in our, what's our called, like TDEE, or total daily expenditure, energy expenditure, which is basically how our body uses its calories.
Yeah, so let's get in on that, right? So when we work out, a lot of us wear an Apple Watch or something like that, and it'll tell you the number of calories that you've burned, right? On the Apple Watch, it's that red move number is the number of calories you've burned. I'm not gonna get into today how horseshit those numbers are. If you think that in your 40-minute HIIT class, you burned 1,100 calories because your Apple Watch said so, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but you did not burn 1,100 calories, and you should not go home thinking you can now eat 1,100 calories because you didn't burn that many. It is a great barometer of how hard did I work today versus yesterday. So it's a good tool. Just recognize what the tool is for. Now that I've gone off on that tangent, let's focus on the fact we're talking about I have a high metabolism or I have a low metabolism. If I have a low metabolism, there are things I can do to change that, right? Because how much, Adam, let's say you exercise more in a day, how much does your exercise make up of your total calories burned in a day? Because this is really big.
If I'm lucky, I mean, I came in here and my goal was I'm gonna burn as many calories as I can in this hour and a half. So I did burpees for an hour and a half, that's all I did. And I leave wrecked. I mean, I am a fucking mess. That would maybe account for 15% of my calories burned throughout that day. That's if I'm lucky. That's if I murdered myself in the gym. For most people, probably falls in between 5 to 10% of your calories burned in a day.
Yep. So where do the majority of those calories come from? It's what we call our resting metabolic rate. It is the number of calories your body requires a day just to keep you alive, right? So my eyes have to blink, my heart has to beat, my lungs expand and they collapse in order to push oxygen in and out of my body. These all take energy, right? They're movement. Movement is energy. So in order to really address increasing the number of calories we burn a day, yes, increasing our exercise is great. That's a great way to burn additional calories. But how can we make our body more of an energy burning machine, a fat burning, shredderizing machine? We can do a few things, right? Increase the amount of muscle on our body.
Yeah.
The more muscle on our body, the more calories we're gonna burn doing everything we do. Also, just increasing the cardiovascular efficiency of our body. If we're in better shape, our body will burn more calories as its RMR level. A few other things play into this, like gender and age. Obviously, those aren't things you have control over. So I wouldn't work too hard on trying to change those to burn more calories. But
yeah, but I mean, wherever you are on, the amount of lean muscle on your body, your age or gender, those all kind of move together, right? The amount of calories that you're gonna burn, the amount of calories you typically need. So it's safe to say that your RMR, it accounts for about 60% of all the calories that you will burn in a 24-hour period. So the overwhelming majority of your calories burned are just happening without you even knowing it. Moving on from there, we get into what is called the thermic effect of food. The thermic effect of food accounts for about 15% also of the calories that you burn in a day, and that is your body having to use calories to digest food. Have you ever heard the kind of like tidbit about food where it's like, oh, a celery stick is like -4 calories because you have to burn more calories chewing? That's horseshit, but it does kind of paint a picture for how this works.
I think it is negative calories, isn't it? Celery? I mean, you're not going to get skinny eating celery because it burns hella calories, but I think it is negative.
If you only ate celery, you would wither away into a frail.
Yo, but I heard celery.
skeleton.
I heard celery juice every morning turns me into Superman.
Oh yeah, no, Superman 100% drank celery juice and all the celery juice. That's a fact.
Yeah, and he was like the keto guy. What's his name?
Oh, Greg, no, that's the intermittent fasting.
Oh yeah, we'll talk about him in a little bit.
Brutal. But that is what it is, right? And when we talk about being able to manipulate calories burned, we can eat juice. We can raise that number really easily by having a higher protein diet. The macronutrients, fat, and carbs are metabolized by your body. They're digested, separated into those substrates so they can go into your bloodstream much, much easier than protein. Protein is very complex. So for your stomach and your body to decompose that into those amino acids and get them into your body takes a lot more time and a lot more effort. So just by eating a higher protein diet, you're automatically going to increase your daily expenditure of calories.
Let's talk about diets.
Let's talk about
Talk about what they are.
Well, let's talk about why would you diet, right?
Okay.
There could be a couple of different reasons. I think probably the number one would be weight loss.
Yeah. A lot of people trying to lose weight, especially with the Corona-19 coming into effect. People
Yeah.
putting on that weight, chilling at home.
Yeah.
We probably want to lose some weight.
So, and what you need to know about weight loss through a diet is that what really matters is calories in versus calories out. You will not lose fat, you will not lose weight if you are at a caloric surplus, taking in more than you spend.
This equation it's not disputable. Anyone that disputes it doesn't know anything either, right? This is a scientific fact. If I take in more calories than I expend, I will gain weight. If I expend or burn more calories than I take in, I will lose weight. This is not up for debate. It is a proven scientific fact. The difficulty with this is that if we look at how many calories we expend, right, whether that's during exercise, whether it's our resting metabolic rate, there are formulas that will give us a barometer of this, but most of them are plus or minus 20% accuracy. The only way to actually measure this is to hook us up to a CO2 device that measures the amount of CO2 we breathe out and then can calculate it. I don't think anyone tuned in right now has been hooked up to that device for a day, a year, so we can't calculate that side. Then if we're trying to calculate the intake side, we're trying to calculate how much food we're taking in. So the way that they determine how many calories are in a piece of food is they use a piece of equipment called a bomb calorimeter. They put the food in it, it heats up, it gives the calorie of that piece of food. No one has ever put a McDonald's Big Mac into a bomb calorimeter, right? They put a piece of cheese, they put a piece of bread, and then they kind of estimate what the total for that food is. Again, we're plus or minus 20% on raw foods. We're plus or minus 30 to 35% on meals in a grocery store. So we can't accurately, down to the number, figure out the amount of calories on either side. So there's some give and take here, right? We gotta play with it and we gotta work with it, especially because every human's body is totally different.
So when we're looking at, you good?
A lot of people try and mix with that topic. Like that, those things are like an actual fact. Anyone that disputes that is just wrong.
No, if you drink the celery juice,
Yeah.
you could eat 30,000 calories and you're fine.
It's just horseshit.
Yeah. So that could look right a different way. I think that when people try and fall into this diet when they're going to lose weight, they're like, this is it. I am eating salads for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I'm gonna put chicken on them, no dressing. I'm gonna squeeze a little lemon, disgusting. And I'm gonna lose all this weight. I lose it really quick. Let's say you're able to stick with that, right? It's coronavirus season.
Shout out to you, that sucks.
That sucks ass. But it's coronavirus season, right? So you're on this thing, you're not going out, you're not being social, so you're like, I can really control what I'm gonna eat, I'm gonna do this. Maybe you lose 10 pounds in 2 weeks. Rock on, you feel great about yourself, that's awesome. The problem with restricting that much that quickly is that, yeah, you will lose 10 pounds in 2 weeks, sure. But what happens when life comes back around? You're going out and you want to enjoy your life. You want to go out for some beers and have a slice of pizza. All of a sudden, that weight comes back. And then you're like, well, shit. Like, I just failed. I just wasted all that time. I'm a failure. And then you hop off the wagon completely. This idea that weight loss should be, how fast can I do it? Others did it this fast, is ridiculous. What you should shoot for is a sustainable lifestyle, right?
Habits.
Having some beers on the weekend and enjoying going out with your friends should never be like frowned upon. Like,
right.
You have to enjoy life.
Unless you've got a real health concern, like your doctor is like, yo, you gotta lose 50 pounds like now, or it's gonna impact like your ability to live. Different story. We're talking about the average person that wants to lose, 10, 30 pounds, whatever.
Mm-hmm. Going on, we also might diet for muscle gain. This is for athletes and gym hardos across the world. I think a lot of guys, and as
shout out Dennis,
females, want to put on a little bit more lean muscle, which is awesome. As we talked about, it's the #1 way to increase the biggest section of calorie burn through the day. And for that, you really do kind of need to be in a calorie surplus. And then manipulate your diet into a high protein diet. And then, you want to speak on that?
No, I'm ready to get to the type of diets. All right. I don't know what else you got there.
And then I just want to address this one too, is health. Right? That might mean you need to lose some weight, right? If you're like type 2 diabetic or something like that, you definitely, weight loss needs to be a part of it. But this also might mean that you need to cut something out of your diet. And I want to address this because we are going to talk about some elimination diets. And for some, we're going to shit on them. But for some, they may be very necessary, right? If you are celiac disease, yeah, you should probably cut out gluten because it's really, really bad for you.
Yeah.
Or if you're, have an intolerance to legumes and beans, yeah, those probably shouldn't be a part of your diet. So I just want to get that out of the way before we dive into these diets.
Let's talk about, intolerances are fully a thing, right? And now there's a difference between celiacs, Adam's talking about, which is your body cannot process gluten. It has horrible reactions to it, versus a gluten intolerance, which through an elimination diet, Whole30, I realized that I have. If I consume gluten, I'll get some tension headaches and a sniffly nose the next day. Does that impair my ability to go about my day? No, but it kind of sucks. So I'll make a point not to have gluten if I know I gotta do stuff coming up. But sometimes, if I'm out at a bar and they don't have gluten-free beer and I don't have a full day the next day, okay, I'm willing to still have a couple of beers knowing that I might be a little sniffly the next day.
Yeah.
Right? There's a big difference there.
All right, so what is the best diet? I feel like the diet craze has kind of picked up recently. There's been this whole new batch in the last 5 years. Probably the most recent one is keto.
Yeah.
Keto's been big.
So let's talk about what it is, right? So keto is a high-fat, extremely low-carb diet. It's normally glorified as a high-fat diet, but really what it is a low-carb diet, and since your carbs are so low, you're eating a lot of additional fats to make up that difference in calories. So with keto, you have to go down to an extremely low, generally less than 25 grams per day of carbs, which is almost nothing. 25 grams per day of carbs is 100 calories of carbohydrates. You go down to that for 2 weeks, and then sometimes you can pick it back up to about 50 grams of carbs a day, depending on how your body reacts. You have to play it by ear. And you test your P. If you're really gonna do keto, you test your P frequently to test the amount of millimoles of carbohydrates or glucose in your system. The issue with the keto diet is that it will impact your athletic performance.
It will impact your athletic performance.
It will. If we look back at what we discussed at the very beginning, the primary source of energy for your body is carbohydrates. For athletic expenditure, it is carbohydrates. So if you remove carbohydrates, your body has to do what's called becoming more metabolically flexible so that it can use fats, but it will never be able to use fats, never, ever, ever, for anaerobic movement, which is quick burst of movement. So if you, for instance, come to JagFit and you do our style of programming in here, you will not be able to perform as well on keto because it shuts down what's called the Krebs cycle. It also shuts down, to a degree, your ability to perform anaerobic movements almost entirely. So it will impact performance. As an option for weight loss, I'm not totally against keto.
I think that when we approach these diets, right, it's like if you love bacon and eggs and you can eat that for breakfast, lunch, and dinner,
For sure.
right, and you love animal proteins and like you're sustaining it well and you're like, it doesn't really impact my life that much and you're losing weight on it and you feel good, like power to you. It wouldn't be what I choose. And I know, and I want to address this right now, because I know that there are probably some keto warriors that are like, well, no, your body can use ketones for energy. It's like, yeah, it can. It is your body's backup system. The reason that your body can turn fat into ketones that can be used like carbs are is an adaptation for when carbs weren't a part of our diet. It is our fallback option. It is not optimal. It will never be optimal. What is optimal for your body is carbohydrates.
Yeah. Also, I want to shit on another keto thing, is that keto and keto, what do they call them? Keto geist? People that are like super keto, that's the only way. First off, anyone that tells you there's only one style of eating for everyone, keto is for everyone, paleo is for everyone, they're just wrong in general too, right? We're all different, we all need different requirements. But the keto guys will push that your brain, right? Brain functions entirely on fats. We need fats for our brain. Once you get through the keto flu, you're so much more alert and your brain is functioning at 10 times the rate, is horseshit. Like we talked about earlier, your brain functions primarily on carbohydrates. Also, not a topic of debate, scientifically founded in the research. So I just want to get that out there, because that's a big push for keto people.
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, my brain is
Like,
so
yeah,
much better.
I'm firing on all cylinders. And it's like, you ever thought that maybe it's just because you went through 2 weeks of being a lethargic ass, and now that your body has like resorted to its backup system and it works even halfway decent, you're like, I feel fucking great.
Yeah.
Like that's like when you have the flu and then you like get over the flu and you're like, I feel awesome. It's like, yeah, you just feel like shit for a week.
And here's the other thing I want to say as like a caveat to everything we're saying, especially when we like really shoot holes in some of these diets, is at the end of the day, if you're eating like crap, your current diet is pretty crappy, and you're like, keto, I heard that works, that sounds pretty good, and so you start doing keto, and that means you improve your eating. You're more conscious of it. You're making sure that you don't eat McDoubles. I don't want to target McDonald's anymore because a McDonald's employee commented on here to stop targeting McDonald's. Okay,
Wendy's.
So if it's junior bacon cheeseburgers, if you're eating that all the time, and keto makes you focus more, and you're eating more natural foods, you're cooking for yourself more, you improve from where you were at. Awesome. Yes, I'm here for it. Anything that steps us up, right, improves us from our current state of eating is awesome. If your goal is to become an Olympian and you come to me and you're like, hey, I heard keto is really awesome, can you be my nutrition coach and show me how to do keto? And your goal is to be an Olympian or make the CrossFit Games, I'm gonna be like, nah, sorry, because like that's not the solution for your problem.
All right, moving on from keto, probably the next one that has been the biggest recently is intermittent fasting IF.
Oh, we got a bunch of questions.
Yeah,
about
this will be
too.
and we'll do a deeper dive on this.
Let's just hit them while we're in it.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. So what is intermittent fasting?
So intermittent fasting is, so people think of intermittent fasting as I eat for 8 hours and I don't eat for 16 hours, which is a form of intermittent fasting. The research, the scientific term for intermittent fasting is time-restricted eating, and it can be any duration, right? So other forms of time-restricted eating are 20 hours of fast, 4 hours off, or 4 hours of eating is a common one. Other ones are full day fast, full day eat, full day fast. The idea is you are excluding when you're allowed to eat down to certain windows.
Yeah, I would say the most popular, right, is like
16.
8/16.
Yeah, 8/16 is going to be the one you see the most common.
Yeah, and I've done intermittent fasting
Same.
before.
Yep. I like to try all of these.
Yeah, no, yeah, and here's what I have to say about intermittent fasting. It's very common in the fitness industry, right, for someone to find this thing that has some benefits and then tell you.
And work for them a lot.
It works for them, and then tell you that it's the best thing in the entire world.
Solution.
You start intermittent fasting, not only going to lose weight,
They've solved the obesity epidemic.
yeah,
You're
gonna get a promotion at work.
Yeah.
You're gonna have women
It's
call
great.
in your team. Yeah, Greg O'Gallagher.
Yeah. Has anyone seen this guy? He has a lot of sponsored or targeted ads on Instagram and on YouTube, Facebook, whatever. And it shows this guy with a top ponytail man bun, and he's all jacked, and he's driving a Maserati into his mansion and partying with his friends. And he's like, yo, listen, I found it. This is the solution.
Yo.
Once you restrict intermittent fasting, like just a heads up, if you start intermittent fasting, there's not automatically a Maserati in your future. You didn't just figure out the stock market as well.
Change your lifestyle, change your life. Dude. You know what it is, bro.
What a joker.
Yeah, dude.
Cheese.
So let's kind of demystify why intermittent fasting might work for some people. If you are not on a diet currently, right? You're not really watching what you eat, put on a few pounds, maybe put on the Corona 19, you've been snacking, and you're like, all right, cool, I'm gonna try this intermittent fasting thing. And you then go to, I'm eating only for 8 hours. Chances are you are going to be consuming less calories than you had previously. Maybe putting you at that caloric deficit, which is, as we stated, right, the only way to lose weight. So it could be that. Could also be paired with the fact that you went from not paying attention to your diet at all. Now you're like, oh, I'm gonna intermittent fast. I got these 8 hours. You know what, I might as well clean up my diet too. You went to Whole Foods that last grocery shop. You stocked up on some nice Whole Foods, some veggies, some rice, sweet potatoes. You're getting some nice lean animal protein in your diet. That probably also is a variable that went into you losing some pounds.
Yeah, and let's give you an example of that, right? So on average, people that do intermittent fasting and they follow the 8/16 rule, they will fast from 8 o'clock p.m. until noon the next day. That's the most frequent one that I see, or maybe 11, but let's say noon. And then they'll eat from noon until 8 p.m. that night. So a few things can happen there. So if I just eliminate my breakfast, but I don't increase the size of my lunch and my dinner, I've eliminated one of my 3 meals of the day. So chances are I'm gonna be eating less calories, like Adam said, which is great. Another potential there is that I'm having my last meal at 7, let's say at night, because I can't eat past 8. So I'm not snacking up until bedtime. That's where a lot of people add in a bunch of additional calories that they're not even aware of, and they're eating them right before bed where they're gonna be very lethargic for the upcoming 6 to 8 hours. So those are what play the role, not the fact that I fasted for that time. One of the, are we gonna talk about Bennett's actual benefits of intermittent fasting?
Yeah, I think we can talk about that.
Yeah. So in my opinion, other than the side benefits that we look at, which Adam explained, I'm eating less calories because I'm only eating for parts of the day and I'm more tuned into my diet. The one scientific fact of what intermittent fasting and just fasting in general can do to your body is it can make you more metabolically efficient, right? Or metabolically flexible. You can become more metabolically flexible, which means that your body can use fats and carbs and switch between which energy substrate it's using more quickly and effectively. And that does have advantages, but it's more advantages for long duration athletes or athletes that do a mixed modal sport. So if I'm a soccer player and I gotta run that field for 100 minutes, and sometimes I'm sprinting and other times I'm lightly jogging around tracking the play, it is a huge advantage to me to be metabolically flexible so that I can switch between carbohydrate stores, fat store, carbohydrate stores. That's a big advantage, but just recognize, what am I using this diet for? Not just, this is the diet, so I must use it.
So we got a few questions. We're gonna get into the rest of the questions a little bit later, but we did get a few questions about intermittent fasting, so I thought we'd tackle those now.
Bring them out,
First one, what are your thoughts on intermittent fasting? 24 versus 16/8, right? So that's talking about the hours your feeding window versus your not feeding window. Going 16 hours fasted and then 8-hour feeding window versus going 20 hours fasted and a 4-hour eating window. The short answer is,
What are your goals?
what are your goals?
What is it you're trying to do with that intermittent fast? If it's to become more metabolically flexible, then I think the longer that fasting window is, the better.
Yeah.
That's my take on it. If my goal is general health and weight loss, we've also got to take into effect that a 20-hour fast on the body, especially day after day, creates stress on the body, similar to a workout, similar to your work being stressful. These are all stresses. Your body doesn't differentiate between negative stress. It's all stress. So if you have a stressful job, if you're not sleeping well, if you're working out really hard, then you should not be on a 20-hour fast, 4-hour eat day after day after day, because that will start to cause negative implications within your body. And I'm adamant about that.
Next, we got a general question, thoughts about intermittent fasting, but more specifically, how about fasted versus non-fasted workouts, right? So,
Great question.
About, like,
Whoever asked that, great question.
Heard about like fasted cardio, or do I eat right before I work out? Again, short answer is, depends on your goals. But a little bit longer answer is it doesn't really matter.
It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter if you're doing cardio, right? Lots of times you'll hear that if I do fasted cardio, so if I wake up in the morning, I haven't eaten for 16 hours and I start doing cardio, I'm going to burn more calories. That is not true. You will not burn more calories. What you want to focus on when it comes to cardio is what makes you perform the best. If eating a couple of hours before my workout then makes me feel lethargic, especially if I ate fats, for instance, fats take a little bit longer to digest, they may still be sitting in your stomach, that may impact my ability to perform that cardio, then I don't want to do that. Maybe I'm better off doing it fasted. However, when it comes to muscle gain, performance exercises, right? Like if we're lifting, either bodybuilding, or if we're doing like we do in here, more sports performance exercises, if I'm going to work out fasted, then it becomes very important that I consume carbohydrates and proteins soon after my workout. Now, soon doesn't mean I gotta, right, like they used to, the bodybuilding world used to believe in that. Metabolic window, yeah. Anabolic window.
Anabolic window, yeah.
30 minutes, I've got to get, 60 grams of it doesn't work exactly like that. Your body doesn't have a clock within it. But if I am working out, especially muscle working out fasted, I have a short time, think about it like maybe 90 minutes, 2 hours, to get those carbohydrates and proteins in after my workout to replenish my energy stores and rebuild my muscles so that they don't just keep breaking down. However, if I've eaten carbs and proteins before my workout and I'm pretty well fueled, then it isn't as important that right after my workout, I'm getting those things in. I've got a little bit more time before I need to do that.
Yeah, and the thought, I think, that is what a lot of people have heard is, right, oh, if I do fasted cardio, my body is just obliterating fat. Like, it's only burning fat. Is it using fat substrates as your primary energy source because it doesn't have any glycogen in your muscle or bloodstream or liver? Yes, possibly. Does that matter in sense of weight loss? In the long scheme of things, no. Because if you wake up and you do fasted cardio for 30 minutes, but then at the end of the day, you ate at a caloric surplus, it doesn't matter. You'll gain weight.
Let's be clear about that. Eating fats is not the only thing that stores in our body as fat. Carbohydrates will store in our body as fat once our glycogen stores are full, which they fill up fairly easily. And protein can be stored as fat if we don't need them to rebuild cells. Protein is the least likely macronutrient, significantly the least likely one, to store as fats in the body. your body doesn't want to store protein as fats because generally it's trying to rebuild something, so it's going to apply it towards that. However, if we're eating 1,000 grams of protein a day, like you're going to end up storing some of it as fat because you're going to be in a caloric surplus.
And the last question we have for intermittent fasting, how to structure the timing of your workouts during intermittent fasting, which we did just kind of touch on.
Yeah.
I would say intermittent fasting also could be, possible negative benefit of your life is that you have to have a very regimented life.
Sure.
If you're kind of in flex, maybe you work out in the morning some days, maybe you work out in the evening some days, which is a lot of people's deal, right? You work out when you can. That can be a little dicey, right? Because if let's say I gotta work out in the morning, right? But I don't eat until noon on my intermittent fasting schedule. That means you are waking up in a fasted state, you work out at 8 in the morning, and then you're not gonna eat until 12. You're really not gonna get the benefits of that workout, right? You're not going to achieve the stimulus that you want to your body. You're just gonna hurt it and break it down. You're gonna spike the cortisol levels. Your recovery the next day is gonna be terrible. Then you might give up on the gym that day altogether because you feel like absolute shit. I would say that if you are gonna intermittent fast, you want to, number one, the safest bet is to work out within your eating window. So if you are like right the noon to 8 p.m., you'd want to work out in the evenings, right? Then have your dinner right as your post-workout meal. Or if you're doing like the 12 o'clock where you start your eating window, if you wanted to work out fasted, if that works for you, you could do that. But like we said, you want to have a meal within an hour to 2 hours, more closer to an hour after that workout, so that your body can start protein synthesis and rebuild what you just damaged. Cool.
I agree. I have nothing to add there.
All right, cool. I thought I'd put this one on there because you've kind of eaten like this for years and years now, with some degree of consistency. Paleo.
Yeah, right. So Paleo was the big one. Paleo was really brought to the forefront, I think, by the CrossFit movement.
Yeah.
CrossFit loves Paleo. CrossFit, the company, because CrossFit is not just a style of workout, it's a company. They actually do zone. That's what they put out there. But most of the CrossFit athletes do a lot of Paleo. So Paleo is basically nothing processed, right? No processed sugars, no processed foods of any kind. Some Paleoists believe in removing dairy from the diet.
Yeah.
But at its roots, I don't think Paleo requires dairy to be removed. I think that Paleo is probably, in my opinion, that's why I've done it on and off for years. Normally I do Paleo during the week and not as Paleo on the weekends because I like beer and processed foods once in a while. But I think it's probably the closest thing to the best style of eating. But we go back to, it's all about habits. So anytime we're cooking our own food, we're using non-processed foods, and we're having a variety of different foods, that is the best. That is simply the best. It's not a set diet, it's just a style of eating that we kind of want to adhere to, trying to limit the processed shit. But I think Paleo is pretty good. My one qualm with Paleo is if you're eating Paleo, your energy substrate carbohydrates, so your primary source of energy, is basically gonna come from potatoes. That's kind of your option in Paleo because Paleo doesn't allow for grains still, I don't think. Whereas I think that rice, for instance, and even whole wheat breads, I think those are a totally good source of energy especially if you're working out frequently.
Yeah. And then another big one right now, I think the kind of big, what's the big movement? I think a lot of people do this during
No, Rosie, we're not to questions yet.
We're doing this in a lot of people do this in January, February to kick off the year. It's Whole30. You just did Whole30.
Yeah, just did Whole. If I'm being honest, I did Whole 27 or 28 because we had a double date and we wanted to drink, and Whole30 allows for no alcohol.
Yeah.
Whole30 is not a diet, in my opinion.
No, and that's why it's
a
cleanse,
cleanse,
right?
right?
It's so what the Whole30 was designed, right, to eliminate from your diet things that a lot of people tend to have intolerances to, right? Dairy, grains, like beans, legumes. You want to, right, eliminate them for 30 days, and then the real intention of Whole30, right, isn't to lose a quick 10 or 20 pounds. It's to then slowly add those things back into your diet so you can see how you feel, and you go, oh, that is the culprit, right? That is what makes me feel bad.
And it can be a good kickstart to weight loss. Hey, I'm gonna do this, because Whole30 is like, to a degree, as strict as it gets with dieting, unless you're following like a macro plan. Whole30, you gotta eliminate a ton of shit. So then you can kind of see how good it feels not to have all that gunk in your body. And then you don't stick on Whole30 forever. Whole30 is not sustainable. You're not gonna have a big social life eating full Whole30 all the time. But it's good to feel that. And hey, I feel a lot better when I don't eat gunk all the time. My body's functioning better, my brain feels a lot better. So maybe I'm gonna reintroduce some of these things, but not all the time and not in the same quantities I was before.
Yeah. Do you have any other big diets?
No, we've been going for a while. Let's get into the questions we haven't answered. We'll wrap this up.
Let's do it.
We wanna make sure we get the questions answered. We actually got a great response on questions, so shout out to everyone that sent those in. I don't know if we're gonna get to all of them. We kind of lumped a few of them together because a lot of them are similar, and we answered a few, so let's see what we got here.
All right, starting it off. Best macro split for building muscle and toning up.
Best macro split for building muscle and toning up. So see, this is what everyone wants to do. Let's talk about this. Everyone wants to build muscle and lose fat. So the name for that would be body recompositioning. Body recompositioning can be a very slow process because, as we talked about earlier, we cannot gain, right, without a calorie surplus, and we cannot lose without a calorie deficit. So it's really difficult to tone up, which really means lose fat, and build muscle at the same time. They kind of compete with each other. But as far as a split for that, it depends. It effing depends, as my favorite scientist ever, Dr. Andy Galpin, would say. It depends on who you are and where you're at currently. If you're someone that's a little bit overweight and you've got some muscle, my focus first is gonna be, how do we lose the weight? And then muscle becomes more the focus. So for something like that, I'd look at like 40% proteins, 40% carbs, and 20% fats.
Yeah, and if you're one of those people that's like, right, you've counted calories for a while, and as we said earlier, it's basically a shot in the dark, but you want to keep yourself accountable, I think one of the best takeaways that I can give is start tracking your protein intake, right? Ideally, you want to be at either 0.8 to 1.4 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. So just start tracking that, set a goal protein, right? And if you're prioritizing protein in your meals throughout the day, right? Because you don't want to get to the end of the day and it's like, oh shit, I have to take in like 60 grams of protein right now. Everything else will kind of fall into place, right? You'll start your meals by eating that lean protein. You start your meals by eating your chicken, you won't be as hungry for those carbs or those fats. I think that is kind of a quick way to be able to start immediately changing your macros for the better. Prioritizing your protein.
Fully agree. And if you're not someone that's ever counted calories, you probably don't have any concept of how much protein you're actually eating. So if you don't want to count calories, which I'm totally cool with, I counted calories for 6 to 9 months years ago. It sucks. Think of your palm of your hand and a piece of protein source this big, right? The palm of my hand, whether that's meat, eggs, whatever. If I'm a guy, I want to have 2 of those. 2 palms of the hand at every meal. If I'm a girl, 1 hand palm at every meal of protein source. If you start doing that, you'll probably notice it's more protein than you're eating right now. Most people are protein deficient. And that'll, in and of itself, start to make you more full so you won't eat as much of the shitty stuff for you. And you'll probably start to see some results if you can just do that. That's a great place to start.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up.
What is the best food to get you super jacked and super lean?
We answered this earlier. It's obviously celery juice, right? And if you even sprinkle some chia seeds in the celery juice, life changer. Overnight. I mean, not overnight. It might take a week or something for you to be jacked AF.
I would say like in a year, you could probably win your first bodybuilding show.
Yeah.
You just drink celery juice with some chia seeds.
Yeah, right. I mean, trying to give you a real answer, there isn't one, right? Eat protein, get in adequate carbohydrates. Basically, the more variety of things you can eat throughout the day, the more colors that you eat, right? If we're looking at vegetables and fruits, trying to get more colors in. The more different types of meats I eat throughout the week, not just chicken every day. Chicken, steak, ground turkey, ground beef, pulled pork, whatever it is. Mixing things up more is always going to be better for you than sticking with the same thing always. It's also going to probably keep you on track better because no one wants to eat the same thing again and again. That sucks.
Moving on, we got, are carbs gonna make me fat? And we talked about, right, macronutrients, and this kind of leads into a place that I want to touch on, right? Nothing makes you fat. You can't point at something and go, fucking ice cream makes you fat. Pizza makes you fat. No, it doesn't. A surplus of calories makes you fat. So too much pizza, yeah, would make you fat. Too much chicken, too much you could eat boiled chicken and eat 3,000 calories of it and only burn 2,000 calories, you'll gain weight. And you'll gain weight over time, probably in fat, right? It comes down to that basic law. Calories in versus calories out. You can have at night 2 handfuls of Doritos. As long as it doesn't put you in a calorie surplus.
And as long as it doesn't turn into the bag of Doritos, which it does. I just want to clarify one thing that Adam said, because I want to make sure that the point came across correctly. Boiled chicken is better for you than pizza and ice cream. Pizza and ice cream are what we call incredibly calorically dense foods. One piece of pizza, especially one piece of deep dish pizza, for instance, could have 600 or 700 calories in it. 1 pound of boiled chicken does not have that many calories in it. You are not going to truck through a pound of boiled chicken. You could truck through 3 or 4 pieces of deep dish if you're determined.
Yeah.
Right? The calories add up quickly with shitty foods like that.
Yeah. What's the best way to diet while still drinking alcohol?
Great question, right? I enjoy alcohol. Adam enjoys alcohol. This is not the health is the only thing, right? I think that drinking alcohol once in a while for your social standpoint, for your mental health is a great thing. I would say the best way to drink alcohol while dieting is 1, watch your mixer, right? If you're mixing it with Coke and stuff like that all the time.
You're slamming rum and Cokes. That's gonna add up very quickly. And also those are usually really sugary drinks, and sugar is gonna spike your insulin levels, which is gonna turn to you storing fat. So watch what you're mixing it with. It doesn't have to be water, but even like diet sodas. Diet soda gets a bad rap. Diet soda is better than regular soda if your goal is weight loss, right? It's gonna have less calories. The other biggest one I would say is it's not always the liquor that screws up our diet. It's that when we drink, for a lot of us, we then get hungry and our motivation to stay on our diet dissipates. So it's watching what you eat as that drunk food later that night. So one thing I've even done in the past is like, I've hit up Chipotle in the afternoon if I knew I was going out that night, put that stuff in the fridge because it's a much healthier option if you pick the right things. And then instead of ordering a pizza late at night, I've got the Chipotle there. Same thing goes for hungover food the next day. If you wake up and you're like, oh, I feel terrible, I'm gonna hit Panda Express. One of my favorite hungover foods that I try and limit myself from. That's when you really screw it. Yeah, right? but I do want to say, like, if you are having yourself a day and you rack up 12 drinks, like you just like doing that, you just have to be okay with the fact that you're going off your diet, right?
For sure.
That is going to cause you to go off your diet.
Yeah, let's be clear. Liquor has calories in it. Absolutely. On average, 4 to 6 calories per gram of liquor. And that's if you're looking at just straight liquor without anything added into it, like beer or wine. Those are obviously going to drive that number up.
Yeah, I think like a glass of Jameson is like 110 or 120 calories.
You would know that.
So like if I, have myself 12 Jamesons, there's no amount of like not drunk eating or something that's going to take those calories away. That's just part of it.
Plus, you're not going to make yourself not drunk eat if you've had 12 Jamesons.
So, but like, right, it's like, if you have a paycheck, right, which is the amount of calories that you are trying to eat throughout the week, right? No one spends their paycheck, right, the same amount every single day. You have days where you might not spend a lot, and then you have days where you go a little bit crazy, right, on the weekend. Same with the calories. So if you're staying really consistent through the week, right, and you're deficit, then coming up on the weekend, if you want to kind of go off the reservation and have yourself a day, right, it's way less harmful than if you are on the weeks, right, having nighttime beers, or you order a pizza on Wednesday and have a few extra slices, right? It makes it way less hard.
Yeah, the one thing I will say to that though is if I'm 200 calories below 5 days of the week, so now I'm at a 1,000 calorie deficit, and then I slam 12 drinks and I get drunk pizza on Saturday, I've ruined that week. That week is screwed. I was in a caloric surplus over the course of the week. So Adam's right, you can kind of shift that a little bit. I actually love that analogy of the paycheck.
That's cool.
But, oh, did you?
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean because you behaved all week that now there are no rules on the weekend and it's cheat day to the 10th degree, because that will set your entire week back.
Yeah. Moving on, this question is so applicable right now. What's the best way to prevent binge eating? What do you got?
Jen goes, I eat a lot of drunk food. I know, Jen, we've talked about it.
What's the best way to prevent binge eating or snacking out of boredom? Super applicable right now. I am a bored eater. I'm an anxious eater, so I totally get it. I think that right now, especially because we're all at home, is don't have those snack foods in your house. If they're not there, you are not going to eat them. If I, kind of have a day and I get like a bag of Doritos, on my way home, and then I'm like, I'll have a couple. Maybe the first time I reach in the bag, I do just have a couple. I'm like, cool. Next day though, if it's in the house, grab a handful. 20-30 minutes goes by. I just find myself in the kitchen, right? It happens to all of us all the time.
Staring in the cabinets, right?
Staring in the cabinet.
Opening the cabinet.
You don't even remember how you got there.
No.
So I would say definitely just don't have it in the house. If it becomes a bigger issue where it's like no matter what you are going to eat, I would say have a little food journal. Really easy to do, especially right now when you are just in the house. Not so much the calories, right? You don't have to do MyFitnessPal, but even writing down what you eat throughout the day, right? Knowing that if I pull this out of the cabinet and I put it in my mouth, I am going to have to write it down and it will be a part of my food log. It kind of puts it in perspective how much you are eating. It gives you a nice barometer.
No one wants to have to look back at that sheet of paper and see 28 times written down handful of Doritos, right? So writing it down, you're gonna go, fuck, I don't want to write that on there. I feel weak. So then you end up not doing it. Adam's had a lot of success with that with his nutrition clients.
Yeah. Best diet for losing fat. Calorie deficit.
Yeah, we'll come back to that one last.
Yeah, all right, we'll come back to that one last.
That's the conclusion.
How sweet are you?
How sweet are you?
I think that one's for you.
Boy, you don't even want to know.
All right, we got this one. Talk about bread.
SP sweet.
Talk about bread and pasta and cheese. What's the deal with grilled cheese? Are they bad?
Bread and pasta and cheese. I'm not here to say that any single thing is finitely bad or good. There's a spectrum, right? This end is the bad end, this end is the good end. Every food falls somewhere on the spectrum, but really it's more of a 3D thing because it's whether or not it's good for you. If I am a very active person, let's say I'm training for some type of competitive event, a triathlon, I need a lot more carbohydrates than most Americans need. So suddenly bread is the bomb because I gotta get in those simple carbohydrates and utilize them. If I'm someone that's fairly inactive though, then things like bread and cheese don't add a ton of value because they are not super calorically dense from a micronutrient standpoint. I'm not getting a ton of micronutrients out of white bread. Switching from white bread to wheat bread does add a lot of value because you're starting to get a lot of good from that wheat in there. But also it depends on who you are, right? So a lot of people don't digest cheese well because they have a sensitivity to lactose. But it just depends on who you are, right? If you're gonna have a grilled cheese once in a while, pause, I think we're back. We'll notify you.
I think there's a 40-minute time cap. We gotta go again.
We'll notify some of your I think. I think it booted us off for our connection.
I think it's really bad.
I do too.
Oh, now.
I'll take it. I'm just gonna close this out if it comes up. Ooh, we got sabotage there. So yeah, I don't know if anyone's tuned in anymore because we got booted off, the connection was a problem, or I don't know if we hit the hour limit. Maybe there's an hour limit that you can go on here. But talking about cheese and bread, just like everything else, are good in moderation, right? So control the amounts of that cheese and bread that you're eating, and that's going to be able to decide how good they are for you. Just keep in mind that cheese or bread don't provide as much internal quality for your body as far as micronutrients, vitamins, minerals, as something like fruits and vegetables or high quality meats and proteins. So if we bring it back to the very first question, right, what we had here, what is